All right, welcome to Raising Funds for World Domination, Day 107. So for the standard intro, there's no updates on the renovation situation. Hearing still scheduled for October 6th. And currently working, so the evening work is to work on getting toward the next release of the terminal block mining simulation game. So today I finally started work on the next long form video. So I started some of the initial brainstorming for the script. And so that's what I'm going to continue working on during the day, and I'll just reserve the evenings streaming session for the remaining work for the terminal block mining game. So the current work is to refactor the multi-column character merging. So I've done some major refactoring to the functions I have for merging together the screen layers. Dev Yoshikaga Kira. Interesting, your username changed. I wonder if it's it did that one time before. It used the, I don't know, Google. There's like two different, there's like your display name and then your username or something. Nice. I guess it's switching back and forth between them. Yeah, the Orthoplex 64 is not here tonight. He's late. I guess I'm early, so I threw him off. Yeah, so tonight I'm going to continue with refactoring the test cases. So I have my test cases are working for all the case for single column character merging, but they're a bit complicated. So I'm going to refactor them, simplify it, and then once I change it to I add the multi-column character support, that's going to make it necessarily more complicated again. So that's kind of how I do things, just try to add complexity to make it more correct, and then add test cases, and then I can kind of just play the test cases off of the implementation and refactor each and go back and forth. Yeah, I thought before about adding some more complicated screen update debugging feature. Probably won't have time for that. So it's an ideal. I'll throw on the to-do pile. After I do get all the multi-column merging support working, I do want to implement the circular buffer backing for screen areas, because I do think that'll lead to some major performance increases. Oh yeah, there's another thing. Another thing I have, I anticipate that when I eventually do, once I implement this change, I'll probably go back to the profiling and just see like now what's the bottleneck, and I think it's going to be this thing from when I remember profiling it. I think there's some low-hanging fruit there to make this faster, and that's a pretty fundamental data structure in the game. So that'll, anywhere I'm iterating over a region of space, which I do in a lot of places, so it'll make all that faster. Oh yeah, and on part of the reason for this was not only performance improvements, but there's also a whole host of bugs that I can fix a lot more easily with multi-column characters on other terminals. Keep switching between display name and handle name. Yeah. Weird YouTube. I don't know, maybe it's like A/B testing or something. Speedrunning Band says hello. Hello, how's it going? There's a new algorithm for shortest distance on sufficiently large sparse graphs with positive weights. R.I.P. Dijkstra. Nice. Someone beats Dijkstra's. So is it always better than Dijkstra's? I always find myself to watch these. I'm back. Excellent. Hi, I think it's my first time watching your channel. Welcome. My live streams are pretty boring, to be honest. I started doing them just to try it out, and I'm still doing it a daily, 107 days later. Tonight, I'm going to continue work. I usually just try to code a bit, and then I end up getting distracted by chat. And I'm working on my terminal-based block mining game, which I'll show momentarily. So this here is my terminal-based video game that I've been working on. And I'm currently working on, it's a terminal-based video game where you can wander around and spam the M key to mine blocks. So that's the basic game idea. Currently I'm working on some performance and correctness improvements. So that's the game. I admit, honestly don't know about coding. I only know bare bones stuff. Yeah, that's actually, I think, a commonly reported thing among people who hang out. I think people probably, there are some people, I guess there are most people who kind of lurk here are developers, but there's also a lot of people I think that are just kind of curious about coding. I think there's quite a few people that code all day at work and don't really want to stare at someone else doing it at nighttime. What's the objective going to be? Is it just going to be sandbox? Currently, there's very few game mechanics. In my view, the main objectives are just fixing performance issues. So it's not too terrible at the moment. I spent better part of the last 100 or so days. I made a like framing system, so I have like a help menu that I can open up. So it's just kind of the generic bare bones to be able to go into to like change the frame sizes and stuff like that. And oh, look, I got a bug. Interesting. Yeah, and another major thing was making screen resizing work. So when I change the size of the screen, it'll update for you. And as you can see, there's some glitches, and that's because I'm currently working on fixing the multi-column character support. What language? Java. Dijkstra's time complexity. Here is O. M plus N log n. However, this new raw algorithm achieves M log 2/3 of n. So I guess, could there be cases where Dijkstra's is still faster? Like contrived cases even? Breaking the sorting barrier. That's neat. I'm sure I'll see it pop up somewhere in tech news. Actually, I was just going to say I'd probably see it on Hacker News. But anyway, I've been thinking I used to check Hacker News all the time, but I almost never check it now. What's the main bottleneck right now in general? One of the main bottlenecks was mainly related to, like, for example, well, other than like there's correctness issues, which I'm going to put priority on, which has to do with at the moment the screen is actually 4 different layers. So this help menu is its own layer. So it exists in a separate layer space, and then there's an algorithm to merge the layers together. And also every single frame, like these red highlighted things, exists in its own thread in a separate layer. And all those layers have to be merged together. And one of the most expensive layers is the map area here. So when I'm moving around, if I move up like that, the current implementation is recalculating what's the contents of every single cell. Now the screen layer thing has started to become a bit more intelligent. So it will now internally, before printing stuff, it'll internally in a separate thread calculate what the differences are. So for example, when I move up, this block in the center here is not changing. Like if I add the cursor there, if I go up, it's still a rock. So what it'll do is it'll only calculate where at the boundaries where things have changed, and then it updates those areas to be a little bit more efficient. But there's a few other improvements I can do. I think for small graphs, Dijkstra may still do better. Or densely connected graphs. Sparse graphs are more present in real world. Oh well, and algorithm improvements are always neat because it's like it's a way to make a permanent dent in the universe. So you SSH into machine using URL. Got local DNS. Started learning self-hosting. You can just it's not DNS. It's actually like look up creating an SSH config file in your home directory in like home.ssh/config. If you create that file, if you just Google SSH config file, you'll see like you can create basically like the alias, which it's not a DNS name. But that's another thing you could do. You could also set up a DNS. Although having said that, if you set it up as just DNS, you'd still have to have a way to authenticate. So if you typed in the full DNS name, you'd have to like type out -i for the identity file and all that stuff. Hey Star. I've never, I know of that algorithm, never learned it. What is your goal in being an entrepreneur? To be rich, or as rich as possible? That's one of the goals. Obviously, getting more rich opens up more opportunities to do more of the things that I want. But I mean, I guess there's other goals as well. To have more agency and control over my future. To be able to do other stuff like, increased networking opportunities and whatnot. You have an opportunity to, if you become successful, you can network with more people and I spent time doing, cubicle work for a while, and I'm not sure if you have a cubicle job. I don't know if you enjoy that. It's not for me. I have an idea for our business. Not sure how viable it could be. What would you suggest as a way to research if it's possible success? It would be software or web delivered content business. I would say any kind of business that you start, It's constrained by like the growth and success of it is ultimately constrained by like the math of like whether you can actually achieve a return on investment. So for software projects, I think something that software developers underestimate is just massive capital costs to building software. So to make, especially in this day and age, all the simple software that's really profitable has already been created. And so if you're going to create like new software, like an amazing accounting, mathematical, architecture, calculation thing or something, the capital costs, the time it's going to take you to build that is really long. But if it's simple, like if it's a chat application, there's like, you don't see as many of those anymore, but like a new social network or a new like a new software chat to do app or something like that, that will for that the capital requirements are mostly in customer acquisition cost, and it ends up going down to the math of like how much can you steal users away from another product. Because I would argue that in today's software world, everyone is already using software like 100% of the time. Anyone who's going to use software is constantly using software. So really almost the limiting thing is customers, not software. And if you create a new piece of software, like if you create a chat application or a social network, you can be successful, but you have to spend money to compete with other people who maybe have better products. And then if you get enough users pulled away and you can acquire users cheap enough, then you can make a bunch of money. And so if you're going to want to reason about the viability of your project, a question would be like, how much money are you going to make per piece of software sale or per month or whatever? And then how much money does it cost to acquire those customers? And then where's your break-even point and stuff? Trailblazing 5, I guess. Sends 100 PLN. Nice. Oh wow, that's $27. That's $27 US. Nice. Thank you very much. Thanks for that SSH config tip. Actually, so if you like that one, if you look at my channel, I made a video on SSH. In my opinion, it's one of the better videos on SSH on YouTube. I'm pretty, I go into some of the more thorough stuff about like, actually how to validate the SSH like identities and yeah, a bunch of different cases. If let's see, what's it titled? I think it's just called what is SSH, and I also have a blog post that goes along with it. It doesn't have many views. I think it's only got like a few thousand views, but put a decent amount of time into that to go over all the different cases. If you like that tip, you'll definitely like my SSH video, and I think I actually even talk about SSH config files in that video as well. Let's see, did I talk about proxy jump? That's another advanced, semi-advanced feature of SSH configs. If you want to like seamlessly tunnel through another machine to get to a third machine, it can be pretty useful. But yeah, thank you for the super chat. I read somewhere you're going to get new customers cheaply if you have a strong differentiation from your competitors. If there's little differentiation, they must use lots of dollar sign. I would say that statement is true. I'd maybe make a broader statement about that. In that when you're marketing in the field, like marketing in itself is it's a whole field. Like as much as software engineering is a whole field, and there's tricks, and there's like 10x engineers and stuff like that. I think that you can also have like 10x marketers. I think that's an underappreciated thing. And honestly, I think like if you have an outstanding marketer in a company, I'm actually of the opinion that someone who's like a brilliant marketer is more valuable than a brilliant engineer in your company. And the broader statement I would make is that if your message is simple and easy to understand, so when you're marketing something, it really helps. If you like you can use the measure of if you're using the most common 1,000 words in the English language. Like actually, my how to make a CPU video is a pretty good example. It's just a very simple, starts off with a very simple language, and like the connection to something physical and real. Like before I made that video, I remember I looked up, like I was like, is there any videos on YouTube about how to make a CPU? And there was a video by Intel, and it was like this cartoon, and it had like all these it was like a super cartoony illustration. And for me, already knowing like the process of lithography and stuff like that, I could understand what they were representing in the models. But I remember the top comment on the video was like, wow, this is amazing. I have absolutely no idea. This is like, I don't understand anything from this video at all, because it's just, it was too abstract of an explanation. And so I would say, like, when you say, if your differentiation is clear, I think that's true. But if you can just explain what the concept is, and if people understand it quickly, that will translate into more conversions for your business. But having said that, that's just about your messaging. The other big question is like, how do people discover? Like, what's the initial distribution? Because if you want to like just buy ads, you'll almost certainly run out of money before you get any meaningful revenue, and it's really a catch-22 problem if you don't have money for the initial marketing. You have to figure out some kind of like a niche. If you're actually bootstrapping, it really depends how much capital you have to start with. Honestly, I think YouTube is a decent way to market your ideas in this day and age, which is why I'm here right now. But of course, it's a lot of work. Nothing is easy. People are getting used to software for free. Yeah, that's true. That's basically my point with saying that like in this day and age, if you make a piece of software, anyone who's open to using software is already using as much software as they possibly can every single day. So when you make a new piece of software, the limiting reagent is you need to compete for people to use the software. You gotta like, basically force them to. I have no idea how social media gets monetized. Servers don't run underwater. I guess it all trickles down from advertising and whatnot. There's a ton of at scale. There's a ton of purchasing decisions that get made through social media. Like in aggregate, you might not necessarily think Like probably not many people just see an ad and they're like, oh wow, I like that ad, I'm going to buy that product. But the thing is, most people now, like you'll go on YouTube to look at like, printer reviews, or like jacket reviews or something. People go in there to look at, stuff they're interested in. And then that data can be used for better targeted advertising, which is quite valuable. Ad revenue from Google or advertising? I'm skeptical. Spent the last 2 years writing an air pollution solver for low emission zones. And so trying to figure out what to do with it. That's a feature. The question is though, how do you? Were you trying to like sell that as a product, or? I think that by itself is not. You'd have a really tough time getting consumers to pay for something like that, because ordinary people, there's probably a very small number of ordinary people who are really seeking that data, and those ones that are kind of expected to be, for free, something that the government produces. Leva 8651 says, "Good morning. How's it going today?" Not too bad. Slowly grinding away, making progress on test cases for the layer merging process. Nine. Hello, I'm not familiar with Java. Mainly learning C++ fundamentals right now. Why do you prefer Java for your terminal game? I guess that's a common question. There's a few. I guess there's a few things to say about it. The question is like, why not the other languages? So, why not Python? I didn't use Python because I think Python is good for small scale prototyping. So anything less than a few thousand lines. That's kind of like throwaway code for getting started. C and C++ is a no-no for me because there's a lot of data structures and like string concatenation, and I've written enough C to know that I think doing a game like this in that language and like complex data structures, C or C++, it would just be a nightmare of memory leaks and seg faults and stuff. So better memory safety. Java is also good because it has a lot of personally, I think it's a very like enterprise-y friendly language. There's a lot of like if you need a hash function or some cryptography thing, there's probably an implementation out there that like actually works. And in languages like Python, I find there's way more like just weird cases that like would matter a lot to enterprise people that like don't matter to like Python script kiddies, so it just never gets fixed. A language like Rust, maybe Rust would be good. I don't know any Rust, and I don't have an intention to learn it. Golang might be a good language. Java's a no-go. I guess technically you could write it in JavaScript or TypeScript or something, but it's a desktop application for terminal. And then I guess I don't know. I could enumerate more languages, but C++ is for nerds. All the corporate girls prefer Java. I guess that's an interesting way to put it. I personally, I think every language is a tool. A lot of people seem to talk about languages as though a certain language is better, but I think you have to use the right tool for the job. And C and C++ makes sense for situations where we have to touch like an API or something, or write a driver. Like there's concepts like in C, and by extension C++, there's concepts like volatile variables and registered variables, and that is much more significant for a language like C, but it doesn't make sense in Java. Also stuff like there's certain context, like an embedded system, where you literally want to and you have to manage the memory yourself. So in an embedded system, you're going to want to use something like C. If you have like a small Arduino with like a few kilobytes of memory, you have to basically make the garbage collector yourself, which ends up being like a small circular buffer or something. Because you can't even use malloc, or maybe you can make your own malloc that just returns a random block to something small. In that case, it would be a total disadvantage. You wouldn't even be able to fit the code space for a garbage collector probably. I like making games with Lua. Love 2D. Interesting. I've never used Lua before. People mention it in chat quite a bit. I've since learned that NeoVim config uses that, so I may, if I ever get around to using NeoVim, then I may have to check it out. Given the number of people who have mentioned the impossibility of appealing mysterious Google strikes and suspensions, isn't it risky to be all in as a YouTuber? Yeah. I mean, but it's doing your own things is definitely riskier. I mean, the things that are riskier, if it is risky, that also means other people with a lower risk tolerance are dissuaded away from it. So I'm not competing with them. So in a sense, if you're willing to tolerate the risk, and if the risk pans out, then it can actually be a benefit. I don't know. In my opinion, what I've seen is that there's a lot of people that like complain about getting banned and suspended, but overall, I think YouTube is not too bad. Like, people do get their channel shut down or something for a couple of days, but then they make a big stink about it, and then then everything's fixed shortly later. So it could happen, but then also, like, the corporate world is also becoming more unstable. Like, it's, I guess it's still more secure than trying to pursue a business, but, well, I don't know. It's kind of, that's becoming questionable in this recession. Like this, I can imagine there's a few tales of people like getting laid off like 3 times and stuff, and I haven't been laid off at all in the last couple of years. I'm still an employee of my business for the last 10 years. Move your branding to your website. Hosting is anywhere, any video platform, even if it can be resolved. That's true. Although the distribution of YouTube though is completely unmatchable. Like, if I was to go to some other platform, I think there's currently no competitor. Actually, maybe Twitch might be the closest competitor, but it's like a totally different platform, I think. All right, we get a bug in the implementation. Still leverage the YouTube algo and size. You can alternate to your other platforms on different days. It's true. I mean, longer term, like, I really should be multi-streaming, but I just don't have the equipment for it at the moment. Platform becomes less important. It's more about your brand. That's true, but at the same time, like, I need even more brand before I could just like, see, I'm leaving the platform. I think if I did that, most people would just like forget. I guess if I consistently put out content for 5 or 10 years, I'd get a bit of a loyal audience. But then again, I think I need a bit more than just the videos and stuff, which is why I'm working on this game idea. How does the moderation work on this channel? The chat, I see the chat in the window. And are there some forbidden topics? Oh, so if you look, so up here, right beside my cursor, there's that top chat. I can change that to live chat, and that shows everything. But so if I choose it to live chat, I see everything. But then I'd also need to moderate it and make sure there's no like crazy, because every once in a while there is, people just spam swear words and stuff. So I've decided for simplicity, I just keep it on the top chat, which is like an auto moderated thing. And I've decided that one thing that is interesting that I'd like people to be aware of is when they're being censored. So if you typed anything and it does not show up on the stream, that means it's being censored, and it's probably, if you switch to live chat, it's probably stuck in there. So whatever, and that comes up frequently. I really don't know what to tell you about how it censors things. There's actually no, there's basically no, so maybe it's like a couple random specific things that I have a filter for, just like weird things people are spamming. But other than that, there's no, there's basically no keyword filtering or anything, and like no swear words and stuff like that. But I found sometimes when people talk about stuff that's trending in the news, another common one is if someone makes a joke. So if someone jokes about a conspiracy theory, so if someone says this big corporate thing, big oil is conspiring to do this thing, stuff like that will get censored, which is kind of amusing. Or people make jokes about the Federal Reserve, and those get censored, even though they're just innocuous jokes, which is kind of interesting. If you had Vimeo Tuesdays or Odyssey Fridays, pull some people over. That's true, but there's also a cost-benefit analysis to. I mean, it does increase my risk surface area, but I'm just gonna stick with YouTube for now. And then once I have 10 billion subscribers, once I have 1 million subscribers, then I'd maybe have enough money and resource to to invest in building up this other stuff. there's this starter story channel where people talk about how they build apps to make money, but I'm skeptical of it. I guess you research a topic from A to Z based on your grand plan. I guess research and also experience. You said there's, as for that channel, most likely, like some of that is probably like based on truth. But I find a lot of that kind of stuff is usually, it's basically like marketing in disguise. So there was a popular, oh man, I forget the name of it now. I think it might have been called like indie hackers or something. It was a popular blog that was linked on Hacker News a bunch of times, and I think it was basically like startup stories of how these indie people bootstrapped. It was all about like people bootstrapping companies from nothing, and what people did to succeed. And so I think it started out as a fairly organic, like, okay, here's how you start a company and start your little indie technology business with no money and start from zero. And it got really popular. And then, because obviously a lot of people want to do that. And then I think what happened was people who go on there realize that, wow, this is a great marketing. Like it's they get some initial success. And then in talking about their small success, that would give them like another massive wave of users and growth. And then so I think what happened was they were a bit more like technically you if you started with no $500 and you're on almost homeless and then you start a business, that's definitely a bootstrap business. But what if you actually quit your job and you had like $100,000 in the bank account? Is that a bootstrap business? Technically it is. It's your savings, and you started it with no, external funding or something. But then, like, what if you start a business? Like a more common thing is people start a business, they get $100,000, and then they mortgage the house, and then they get some some equity out of that, and then they borrow some money from friends and family, and then there's like another person, and so they put together $500,000, and that's their seed funding. But it's like, is that a bootstrap business? At that point, it's a bit dishonest to call it bootstrapped. And then I think there was, I didn't research this in depth, but I heard there were some like venture capital backed companies that were sneaking onto this, being like, oh yeah, you can do it too. You just need to do this and that. And they would kind of present themselves as they were this humble small business started from scratch. But if you get venture capital backing, then it's not a it's not difficult to make $900,000 in revenue if you raise $1 million from investors. And at that point, it's not exactly impressive. But there can be some of that kind of thing, and so I'm not saying it's totally dishonest, but quite likely, like even if they are totally honest, it would make sense for them to consider something like that as like a marketing technique. If you raise $900K in revenue from 1 million investors, they'll be wanting more than negative 10% of their money. That's true, but the thing is to like quite often, like for an initial, depending on what their metrics are, that might still be a success case, because like I said before, like let's say you want to try to start a chat application. Like I guarantee you there's going to be companies that start chat applications in the future. Like, think of today. How many chat applications are there? If you raised $1 million to make a chat application, and then on that $1 million, you get on your first you acquire some users. In the first year, you get $900,000 in revenue, and you can actually demonstrate that people are consistently using it. You have like low churn. There's high stickiness to it. Then maybe after a while, like after a couple of years, you can you can squeeze that extra 10% of revenue out. You can add like cryptocurrency, send cryptocurrency payments in the chat app, or just copy of some of the stuff that like WeChat, the Chinese chat applications, are doing. 10x engineer right here. Yep. I'm a 10x engineer. All 10x engineers use awk. There are stories of games that have casinos in their games that are quite popular. If the goal is to make money, then why not exploit gamblers? You could. Actually, besides the issue of that not being particularly ethical, I don't even know what the legal implications of that are. Like, I think historically that's always been illegal, but I guess maybe the government has softened up on that, and they're allowing people to get children to gamble. You get around the legal issue by having in-game currency, which is worthless. Yeah, that's what like I've thought about and like looked into these things, but I would always assume, like, to me that's like an obvious gimmick. And generally speaking, when you find like clever things like that to do, then like any reasonable person would be like, okay, you're basically just using this to evade the law. Then they'll find some, they'll like that's why in all these laws, like for sweepstakes and stuff, it doesn't say about like giving people money or something. It talks about like exchanging consideration or like something of value. And I think if there's any way to get the money out, then or like you can even argue if it's useful for stuff in the game, like if it gives you an advantage over someone in the game or something, all the government needs to do is come in and like create some ruling that says like, actually, this is illegal. Or like with ownership of property and stuff. There's all kinds of clever stuff that rich people do. They'll like transfer a house into someone else's name to try and like, evade bankruptcy seizures and stuff like that. And then the government will come in and be like, nope, you are still the beneficial owner. And then the person will say, rats, I thought I had outsmarted the government. I mean, it also doesn't really... I think if your business model involves making the world a worse place, then it's a very significant risk that eventually something will change in the world that eliminates your business model. Like making food and selling it is a pretty solid core business model because people always want good food to eat. But if your business model is like, stealing and scamming and stuff, eventually, if you're successful enough, someone will become angry enough that they'll do something about you. There's a third party that converts it into cash, allowing for viable legal gambling. Yeah, that stuff, it almost makes you wonder if it's not like if the secret isn't that there's actually some money laundering or something going on there. Now, will that compile? I don't think it will. Oh, it does. Oh, did I modify the wrong function? I think I did. How many ThinkPads do you own? Just one. And I probably won't get any more in the future. I've had a lot of trouble with this one. Do you have a ThinkStation? I don't think so. It's I just have a ThinkPad laptop. ThinkStation, that's like a desktop machine? Right, that may have simplified things. I think it's a ThinkPad P15V or something like that. Yeah, the fan inside of it spins constantly, which by itself that wouldn't be such a huge problem. But the problem is the fan, it's constantly at 100% like max speed. It's always overheating, and then the fan also wears out quickly, and it's impossible to get replacements for the fan. I put 4 separate orders in to get a replacement fan, a new replacement fan. 2 of the orders got canceled, and one time I got one, it was a used fan with like a broken thing on it, like the part of the, it's just like weird form factor. It's not just like a fan, it's like a fan with an integrated heatsink and stuff, and so I got to buy like thermal paste and garbage, and it's kind of a waste of time. And then I bought a second one that I thought would be a new replacement, so I'm not constantly replacing. I don't have to replace it again. But the second one, which was also supposed to be new, is obviously used. So they must making it really difficult to buy new replacements. Had some overheating issues with my T14. Fan was on full blast. Yeah, the keyboard is burning my fingers. Tried stuff from ArchWiki. In the end, set the power profile to eco. Yeah, I tried a bunch of stuff. I tried like setting, changing stuff in BIOS and like turning all the. There is also there's like a power mode thing I can change in Ubuntu. I can go into like the display settings and change the power mode to like there's like a low I wonder if that exists on here. I guess it's not on this one, but in here, there's like a setting I can change to like decrease the power mode. But then again, like that also makes it incredibly slow, which is not cool. Like I bought the laptop to be fast. I don't want to have to like artificially click a setting that makes it like 10 times slower. That defeats the purpose. Like I have all this expensive hardware and I'm not using it. If the goal is to not make the world a worse place, the goal is also to make the world a better place. What about effective altruism? I've heard of that. That's some kind of like philosophy or idea, but I don't know. I haven't. There's many philosophies. I mean, part of my approach to business in that sense of like, trying to not scam people and stuff. It's not so much about like some altruistic thing. It's just about what's practical. Like if you start a business like effectively stealing or scamming or doing something shady that the government doesn't like, eventually it'll catch up to you and it will interfere with your business model. But if you just like make good food, you're never going to get any heat. Like you're never going to get like a whole bunch of people who will start protesting outside your restaurant or something like that. Wasn't that the stuff that crypto bro to run a Ponzi scheme told he was doing? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, all this like crypto gambling garbage stuff. I don't. I have in the past, like I do get messages from people who are like, "Hey, I have this new idea to start a crypto gambling scamming thing. You should partner up with me." I'm like, nope. Hello, Robert Elder Software. How's it going? Sam Bankman fraud. Yes. That guy. Yeah, anything that those people are into is just like immediate. As soon as I hear that a bunch of those people are into that stuff, I'm like, nope. No thanks. You want to get a favorite meme coin? I haven't looked up meme coins in a long time. Let's pump a RES coin. Eventually I'll make my own coin, but I'll make physical coins that have my face on them. Have you started a Robert Elder Software coin? Did you actually make some kind of meme coin? I saw on Twitter there's some like crypto thing that spammed me once about like make your own coin, and of course I get spam like that. So if there is something like that out there, let me know so I can try to get it shut down. I can stake them super cheap. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's so many crypto scams out there that I don't know. I guess there's probably still people that fall for it, but hopefully everyone has been scammed out and they stop falling for those scams. Have you ever vibe coded? I have not. And I watched some YouTube videos about people talking about vibe coding sessions. I don't know the results. It is on my to-do list to actually sit down and try some of those large language model coding tools a bit more, but I have a bunch of other stuff I'm going to try to focus on finishing first. From the YouTube videos I've seen, the results honestly aren't that impressive to me. All right, let's see why that fails. Why is it getting true? I love world domination. Excellent. Moriarty says hi. How's it going? Don't remember why I subscribed, but I love your voice. Excellent. Now I remember. Hope we're doing well. Yeah, pretty good. Today was a productive day. Worked on the script for next video. Made a bit of progress tonight on the block mining simulation game. Well, let's fire up the debugger. Carl that plays games 6941 says I'm back. Welcome back. What is these streams for? I just found it on my recommended. You said you're back though. But you just found it? This is part of a series I've been doing for the last 107 days, doing work on my block mining simulation game. And I'm also raising funds for my world domination plan. If you can check out my I have a video on my channel called My Plans for World Domination. You can check that video out to see a full detail of my plans. If you like the idea, you can become a channel member. Cat Chase 957 sends $5. I didn't watch the world domination video yet, but happy to support the effort. Excellent. Hopefully you will not be disappointed once you watch the video. It's received good reviews. But yeah, thank you very much for your support for my campaign. All right, let's find out why this thing doesn't get the right value. So that's the second layer. Right, that makes sense. Do you like sweet treats? It depends which sweet treats, but I do like candy. It's my favorite luxury. Let's see what this does. That's better. Maybe this will be what we want. All right, maybe this will work. Does Robert plan on a Mars takeover after Earth takeover? We're going for a complete solar system. I mean, why stop at the solar system? There's There's a ton of super interesting stuff. There's a whole bunch of really interesting objects out in the, what do you call it, the Kuiper belt. There's all kinds of planetoid systems and stuff out there. They're super cool. There's apparently, if I was going to colonize all kinds of places, there's apparently there's this like giant, basically ball of extremely metallic stuff, and it's theorized to be like the core of a planet, where the outer part of the planet was like blown away in, I don't know, supernova or something. So it's basically just like kind of iron core, and people have suggested we could go there and mine it or something, which would be super profitable because it's just a giant chunk of super concentrated metal, and that's out there floating around. That's in our solar system too. So yeah, there's lots of cool, interesting stuff. We could go to Pluto, colonize that. Do you think there's life on other planets? I don't know. I don't really think too much about it. I mean, the universe is big enough. It seems plausible, but at the same time, if you the universe is large enough, there's probably life forms that are like abstract enough that we almost can't even comprehend them. Like I've often thought that you can implement in Conway's Game of Life, you can implement like Turing machines, and as you've seen from large language models, we can implement like basically things that appear to be conscious, things that can like reason. And that's the result of, theoretically you can run a large language model on a Turing machine. But if you can run a Turing machine in Conway's Game of Life, then what kind of other like abstract informational, like it makes me wonder, could you have life forms that are embedded in the information in the waves on an ocean? It's something to ponder about if you want to think about a life in the most abstract sense. Like in alien movies, they always have like aliens just have like big eyes and a weird head. They just look like humans basically. Do you use the CPU that you made? Yeah, I don't use those. I'm not falling for big CPUs. Scam. I always just build my own. Much cheaper. Don't have to worry about all those NSA backdoors. All right, our test cases pass. That was the main thing I wanted to accomplish tonight. Let's see if I can make that a little bit more. Oops. Can I get rid of that maybe? Yeah, will that work? Nope. How do I make a CPU? Well, first, you gotta get a rock. Then smash the rock. Now you've got 99% concentrated silicon dioxide. And then you gotta purify it to 99.999999 silicon dioxide. All right, test case passes. How much money did you make off the video? It is approximately $1,000 per million views. So it's at 14 million. I think in the total history, it's a bit more. It might have been like 16. I'd have to go back and check. It's around like 16, 17,000 or something like that for all time. But it took, in the first 2 years that it was out, it only got like 60,000 views, like 2.5 years. And then it just like, I started putting up more videos that were not related to it. Yeah, it's a pretty short video, so that's kind of, it's like around one. I can't remember exactly. It was like $1.30 or something like that per 1,000 views. Actually, it's kind of, I kind of wish it would be. I wish my YouTube income was a bit more diversified, because most of my views are actually that one video. My second most viewed video is the How to Become a 37-Year-Old Broke Loser video. That one made about $10,000 or so. And then when after it stopped trending, it went down to I don't know, it gets like a couple hundred views a day or something. I think it's making like $100 a month or something now. Or I think last time I looked, it was like $70 it made last month. Anyway, I think that brings me to the end of the stream. I got a little bit more progress on the block mining simulation game. Does it annoy you that people still bring up the CPU video? No, I mean, I made it because I wanted to teach everyone how to make their own CPUs at home. So it's good that that's my most significant YouTube contribution, is now everybody on YouTube knows how to make a CPU. So anyway, I think I'll end it there for tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow night for day 108. All right, talk to you later, guys.